Another grand premiere at Warsaw's National Opera and another treat for opera connoisseurs. This time, director Mariusz Treliński unveils his striking new vision of Ariadne auf Naxos by Richard Strauss, opening the spring season with bold flair. TVP World's Pulse of Culture had exclusive access behind the scenes, speaking with the creative minds who brought this ambitious production to life. First, conductor Lothar Koenigs shed light on the intricate architecture of Strauss' dazzling score. Maestro, what challenges does Strauss' score represents or presents to you?
Well, it's a very special score. It's unique, and we have an orchestra of 37 musicians, and everyone has his own part. So we have actually 37 soloists in the pit. Furthermore, we have very special instruments like harmonium. There is a huge piano part, piano solo. We have celesta. We have 2 harps, and we have a lot of percussion, which is almost not being heard because everything is so delicate. So really, he writes for every musician its own part, and this is the reason why musicians love this piece so much. But not only in the pit, on stage it's even more challenging. I mean, if you think of Zerbinetta, this huge aria, probably one of the most difficult arias ever written for opera. And then the challenges to perform Bacchus, although it's short, but it's very demanding. And in the composer, Strauss has his kind of alter ego. So it's very nice for a person like me, like working in the theater.
Marcin Cecko, dramaturg for the production, offered insights into the delicate interplay of humour and heartbreak woven into the libretto, a balancing act that lies at the very heart of Ariadne. We have with us Marcin Cecko, the dramaturg of Ariadne auf Naxos here in Warsaw National Opera. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
So, could you tell us, for those not in the know, what's the general plot of the original opera?
The opera is divided into 2 parts. First part is it shows rehearsals for an opera, Ariadne on Naxos, and the second one is the actual opera. So it's a really interesting combination, like, of the 2 stories, and we wanted to show how they connect. So traditionally, the main character of the Vorspiel, of the first part, is a male composer, but it's played usually by a female singer. For us, it was an obsolete idea, and we wanted to have a female character. And this female composer is making a piece about Ariadne, who is a very solitary person on the island. She wants love so much, she feels really lonely, and she's waiting actually for death. But someone is coming. It's Bacchus. It's the Greek god who also doesn't know why he's there. He's escaping from Circe. She's also a Greek goddess. And then there is a finale of the opera where these 2 characters, Ariadne and Bacchus, are talking to each other, and they are looking for the possibility of love between them. And for us, the ending is, let's say, it has like 2 meanings, because Strauss wanted to see the character of Ariadne that is making a very special transformation. She dies, but she's becoming a star sign in the sky. For us, it's more psychological, and we think about changing yourself, maybe losing the body of this solitary person and becoming someone new, but who we don't know yet.
But these are not the only changes you made to the original libretto, because you placed the whole opera way into the future. What was behind that idea?
So we don't change libretto. We change like the interpretation. Yeah, we cannot change any word. It's forbidden. But yes, the interpretation of opera, the second part, is very different than usual because in the first part, the whole struggle of composer is that she has to into her serious piece include actors from Commedia dell'arte, and usually it's shown like a very serious piece on the stage in the second part opera, but then come some characters that are from Commedia dell'arte. They are quite funny with a different style, and we wanted to make a story that is coherent. So we thought, what if these Commedia dell'arte characters are humanoid or like androids, something artificial, but still within a certain world that we built. And this world, we thought, okay, so maybe this island is not so solitary place anymore. We go to holidays and so on. Maybe it should be something more distant, like a planet that is totally desolate. So we put Ariadne on this desolate planet, and she's living in her space station among the androids, who are not really human, but they try to help her. They are emotionally capable to help her, but she's not interested in the help she gets from them.
But if I were to play devil's advocate, straight of the Simone Boccanegra, that was set in the post-apocalyptic future. Now we have a well-known opera set in space, and I can just hear the critics saying, what are they up to in the National Opera? Are we to expect that every opera from now on will be set in some, surprising way in a future or whatever?
This is our task with the director, to try to find a special world for each opera that gives new meanings to contemporary audience. And we don't look like, we are not looking for similar ideas that anyone else has. And it's like a very coincidental situation that we have Simone Boccanegra also in like future world. But what I think like generally about thinking about future topics is that today we feel so uncertain about the future that we dream about the future to think that maybe there is something better for us. Because today, when we feel about next year or next 10 years, we are scared. So I think that this imagination, like collective imagination, also tells us to explore these ideas of the future. That's why I think sometimes science fiction is not like making a piece that is serious to some kind of pop culture or mainstream area, but it's like to look for a deeper philosophical questions. And for us, this idea had this thoughts that we could use on stage and show them to people that could be understandable. That's why we chose this space station, these androids, that we can see today's robotics, how it really tries to invade our houses with the cleaning robots and so on and so on. So there is something about contemporary times that this story can tell us, I believe.
So would you say that this staging gives audience hope, or is it more sort of a escape from the current reality and thinking, well, it's bound to be slightly better in the future? What was the main message you want the audience to leave this gorgeous building with?
I wouldn't say it's an escape, because we are in opera part takes around hour and a half, and its main character is suffering from being very lonely. She has long arias about it. So we are actually giving the audience this possibility to see these emotions, to feel them. And of course, yes, we want to give some kind of hope, because when we read Strauss and Hofmannsthal, the authors of the piece, we are not sure if they are so optimistic. Ariadne dies. She becomes stars on the sky, but is it like a normal living? No, it's just like a story. It's a myth. In our performance, Ariadne sees her dead body, but she also goes into the direction of life. So I think that there is some kind of hope in this idea, not changing. We are not, of course, changing any words or meanings or music in the opera. So it's like the same piece that people heard 100 years ago. But I think we are a little bit more positive.
Okay, and what was behind Do you know what was behind choosing? Ariadne is not the mainstay of the operatic repertoire. You know, it's not the Rosenkavalier by Strauss. It is, you know, it's a well-established opera, but is lesser known. And the same with Boccanegra. Again, am I reading too much to it? Is a bit of a trend here in Warsaw of just searching sort of behind the well-established repertoire?
I think Ariadne was played only 2 times in Poland before, so it's like a rare stage piece, and I think people should listen to it because it's really beautiful and it's considered one of the best scores in opera. And we did with Mariusz Treliński, A Woman Without a Shadow in Lyon Opera. It was considered a big success, and we felt that there is some kind of connection between the next piece that we wanted to do, Ariadne. So I know that Mariusz is planning another Richard Strauss opera, so he thinks about some kind of trilogy. So this is like the main motive behind it. Mariusz really liked Strauss, and we listened to it a lot, and that's why we thought, yes, this is like a very interesting topic, especially that it's very rare in opera that we have these 2 parts. This one part about rehearsals and about the theater, and the second one that is actual in opera. So for us was also interesting to tell a story about how we make the theater today, what kind of struggle it is.
Originally conceived to reflect Strauss' own time, Ariadne auf Naxos is in this staging boldly reimagined for the future. Set designer Fabien Lédé reveals how the futuristic setting speaks to the opera's enduring themes: identity, illusion and transformation. We already had a chance before the premiere to have a little sneaky peek at the set you designed, and it looks very futuristic. So what were your influences?
My influences are a little bit wide, so it's I really love architecture and let's say old light systems, so I always try to combine this kind of very modern architecture with light systems, so it's become a full object dynamic.
And would you say was there any movie influence? Because some people did say online that there are little hints of almost Star Trek, the classical one. Was that one of your influences?
Well, not especially. After, for sure, everything's happening in space or in spaceship like this, we can have some references like Star Trek. Maybe I'm more into Star Wars, let's say, but I think there is more influences of aliens or this kind of more sci-fi, a little bit dark sci-fi. So it's more this kind of influence.
And of course, I'm sure it's a coincidence that your opera this premiere is staged after Simone Boccanegra, that was set in a post-apocalyptic future. Is your future in Ariadne auf Naxos more benign? Is that sort of a future that's slightly more optimistic in your set design?
I think it's not so post-apocalyptic. I think it's more optimistic as architecture, but still there is some darkness because the play is quite dark. The characters are in some kind of trouble, so for sure it makes the play a little bit more dark and sad, let's say. But the architecture itself, it's not post-apocalyptic.
And how did you show that dichotomy of the play within a play? How we will understand as the audience which part is the actual play that we're watching, which part is the things that are happening to our heroine?
I think it will be pretty clear because first act are very simple, very raw, like we are in a kind of rehearsal space, very minimal, very simple, with no luxury, nothing, like a rehearsal stage. And second act, it's more glorious, more big and with a lot of architecture. So it's a big difference between staging of first act and second act. Yeah.
It remains to be seen whether this premiere of an opera set in space will be met with such an enthusiastic reception as the previous one that was set, Simone Boccanegra, that was set in a post-apocalyptic future. I, for once, was charmed. For Pulse of Culture, I'm Karolina Shapland.